I was told I was free before I ever learned what freedom was. That's how the story starts for most Australians. Not with truth, with inheritance. A story handed down so early, so confidently, that questioning it feels like betrayal. We're told we live in a sovereign nation, governed by the will of the people, protected by democracy, anchored by fairness. And because the story is familiar, we never ask what it's built on. We never ask what a nation actually is, what sovereignty actually means, who holds it, who never did. Australia didn't begin as a dream. It began as a decision made elsewhere by people who would never live with the consequences. It wasn't discovered, it was claimed. Not because it was empty, but because declaring it empty made the paperwork easier. Terra Nullius wasn't ignorance, it was strategy. If the land belonged to no one, then no one needed to be asked. No treaties, no consent, no shared future, just occupation, administration, extraction. This continent wasn't founded as a home, it was founded as a function, a prison, a supply chain, a resource vault. And from that first moment, the pattern was set. People come second to systems, and systems answer upward, not outward. When Federation arrived in 1901, it was sold as birth. But it wasn't birth. It was reorganization, a commonwealth, not independence. A legal structure that kept the crown intact, power centralized, and the public comfortably distracted. No declaration of sovereignty from the people. No moment where Australians collectively said, "This authority flows from us." The Constitution protected property, trade, and institutions far more carefully than it ever protected citizens. You weren't empowered. You were managed. Over time, the chains became invisible. Gold gave way to credit. Credit gave way to debt. Debt gave way to abstraction. Money stopped representing value and started enforcing behavior. You no longer earned it, you serviced it. And with that shift, citizenship quietly transformed. You were no longer a participant in a shared project. You became an economic unit, a taxpayer, a risk profile, a data point. Then came the lesson, the one they never teach properly, the moment when the system revealed its limits. In 1975, a prime minister stepped too close to the real levers of power: foreign banking, resource ownership, intelligence reach, and he was removed without a vote. No tanks, no soldiers, just procedure, law used as theatre. The message was clear, even if the explanation never was. Sovereignty exists only as long as it doesn't interfere with deeper interests. Every leader after that learned where the invisible line was, and not to cross it. From there, politics became performance. Left and right turned into costumes, elections into rituals, change into branding, different faces, same direction. Lobbyists wrote policy, donors shaped outcomes. Media narrowed the range of acceptable thought until debate itself became a cage. You were told you had a choice, but only between options that didn't threaten the structure. You could choose the manager, never the mission. Public assets were sold as efficiency, utilities, transport, housing, health, all reframed as markets instead of shared foundations. Governments stopped building and started outsourcing. Responsibility dissolved into contracts. Accountability vanished into subsidiaries. Citizens became customers, and customers don't have rights. They have terms and conditions. And while all of this happened, control evolved. Not with boots or batons, but with convenience. Digital identity, cashless pressure, data harvesting, algorithmic compliance, emergency powers that never quite expire, surveillance without saying surveillance, authority without calling itself authority. You don't feel oppressed. You feel managed, nudged, profiled, corrected. So people start to feel wrong, tired, disconnected, overworked, underrepresented, spiritually hollow. And because no one names the real cause, they blame themselves. They're told it's anxiety, depression, burnout, a personal failure to cope. Mental health becomes an industry instead of a warning signal. But you weren't broken. You were tuned to something false. You were responding correctly to a system that no longer makes sense. Here's the truth they never say plainly. Australia is administered more than it is governed. Power flows upward, through layers most people never see. The public is managed, not meaningfully consulted. Sovereignty exists on paper, in symbols, in ceremonies, but rarely in practice. And yet the story persists, because nothing enslaves people faster than a lie they defend. This isn't about hating Australia. It's not about burning it down or replacing one flag with another. It's about seeing clearly. Because clarity is dangerous to systems built on confusion. Real sovereignty doesn't start with violence or saviors. It starts with understanding, with structure, with participation that goes beyond voting once every few years and calling it freedom. The system survives because people think confusion is normal, because they were taught the ending before they ever saw the beginning, because they confuse familiarity with truth. I'm Ashen Quill. I don't offer comfort. I offer coherence.